But as much as we love to talk about esports, Dan, there's also a lot to do with the game itself that we'd like to get into. And, you know, the changes in the trends, what's good, what's bad, what's up and what's down. And you had the chance to actually talk with some of the pros, get their ideas together, and see what are the changes, the trends, and pretty much what's good and what's bad in the world of League of Legends. And it's a little segment we like to call the stock market.
Greetings, Summoners. My name is Frodan. Welcome to the stock market, where we talk about all the highs and lows on the fields of justice. Today we'll be looking at the AP mid-roll. Let's discuss some of the trends that we're seeing in both competitive and casual play. Let's begin with champion picks. What's hot and what's not? Lux and Italy are two champions riding off of popularity in both competitive and casual play. They are two champions with long-range, low cooldown abilities with immense nuke potential. They'll also provide lots of utility with vision, sustain, and strong jungle disruption. Both champions have role flexibility. Lux can be a lane support, and Nidalee can be a top solo lane bruiser. When taking them as mage carries, be sure to pick up strong mana items with Lux and Nidalee because you're going to be using their abilities quite often. To combat long-range mids, champions with gap closers and strong burst potential will always be a poker's nightmare. That's why champions like Zed and Kha'Zix this week will make the green list. With stealth capability and the power to dodge skill shot attempts, the only pokes you'll be getting will be on Facebook, if you have friends that still do that. With the high tide comes a turn. It's time to discuss which champions are on the decline. Keep in mind that this is discussing pick value. We're not saying the champion is weak or useless, but just that their value is not as strong as it used to be. First up is Ryze. Ryze is slowly unraveling to be the new Vayne. Ridiculously strong late game, but laughably weak until he gets his big items. His low range and lack of escape makes him vulnerable in lane to strong burst, poke, and assassin play. Ryze can still carry the game when he has the tools, but his pick value has certainly dropped. Next, we move on to Kayle. Kayle, while still being a popular pick and ban due to her ultimate ability Intervention, has been less prevalent because teams are realizing that her kit is more niche than overpowered. Kayle is great against single target high burst, but can't hold her own against AoE compositions or even a well-balanced comp. Echo from Team Marn weighs in. Kayle still fits in most team comps. Who doesn't love invincibility? But her status as OP, please nerf Riot is no longer warranted. Lastly, Orianna is a bit down in pick value because, well, she does a little bit of everything, but nothing in her kit outshines other mages. Nidalee and Twisted Fate have stronger poke and AP ratios, Lux has a better shield that affects all of teammates, and Diana has Orianna's ult on low cooldown. Overall, Orianna is still very much a viable play as we saw with Ryu this past week in NMLG, but her impact potential is valued much lower than some of the other choices. Now that we've discussed some of the highs and lows of champions, let's also talk about some of the items that we've been seeing more in the recent trends. As mentioned before, we've been seeing lots of long-range, low cooldown abilities to poke, like Lux or Nidalee, or even heavy burst engagers, like Diana and Kassadin. All of these champions have one glaring issue, a need for mana. In general, AP mages are rushing for Tears of the Goddess as their first item. At only 700 gold, it's extremely cost-efficient, considering that you get so much mana and the ability to upgrade into an Archangel's as well as a Seraph's to give you that utility of the shield, as well as that 3% conversion rate to ability power. Now, after Tears of the Goddess, there are a lot of different build paths you can go depending on your team comp, lane dynamics if you're ahead or behind. The choices include things like Rod of Ages and Athene's Unholy Grail. These items are normally extremely popular on mages like Ryze, Karthus, and Anivia because they frequently put themselves in danger during battle. But today, we highlight a new item that's been spotted recently, Morello Nomicon, the successor to Morello's Evil Tome. At 2200 gold, Morello Nomicon gives you nearly the same amount of ability power as Rod of Ages, with similar CDR and mana regen stats to Athene's, making it an extremely cost-efficient item to rush in your build. The Red Book also gives you a unique passive that scales incredibly well in the late game. The Grievous Wounds are particularly effective against annoying low HP healers such as Volibear's passive or Sin's Insanity Potion. Not to mention that Morello Nomicon has a convenient recipe of Kage's Lucky Pick, Fiendish Codex, and a Fairy Charm. Very nifty. Namicon has been seen in the most recent high-level games all over the world. Froggen's Lux, Scar's Gragas in their Week 5 LCS matches. Ryu from KT Rolster also showed this on his Eve in the MLG Winter Championship Finals against Gambit Gaming. Check out this item because it is definitely one of the best choices you can make, considering that your gold is pretty precious, so spend it wisely. That does it for this edition of the stock market. Now guys, keep in mind that even though we discussed some of the trends, the highs and lows of different picks, play according to what's best to you. Pick what you feel like you can play optimally and what is most comfortable in your situation. Thanks for watching. This is Frodan signing out. I want to thank, again, some of the players that I've pulled, especially a big shout out to Echo. I know he's sick, but he took the time to actually help me put together that segment. And it's a really, really good build, guys. I've tried it out myself on solo queue, and I know Clutch will be trying it out later today.
Yeah, definitely. You know, before the item overhaul, I actually used the Morel Namicon, what was called the
Morel's Evil Tome.
Evil Tome.
Yeah.
I actually used that on Morgana to have my cooldown reduced on my abilities, but I was too squishy because of it, so I had to go back to Rod of Ages.
Yeah.
But I always love experimenting with some of the items, man. It's a little bit fun.
It's really good, trust me, and you're going to be seeing it much more often considering that everyone wants to go for healing and HP, and the Grievous Wounds is very, very critical for that.